Welcome to the So Much More podcast, where we talk with people in the custom window treatment, soft home furnishings industry, and so much more. I'm your host, Ciel DeGuglielmo. Hi, welcome to today's episode of the So Much More podcast. I'm really glad you're here. Today is one of our solo episodes, just you and I. And I want to talk about something that I think has a huge impact on our businesses, and it has nothing to do with our sewing skills. It's not about our machines or our techniques, and it has nothing to do with how long you've been doing this. It's about communication. When I interview people and ask them what are they extremely good at, and their answer is communication or communicating with my clients, I am secretly doing a fist pump because I think it is so incredibly important. Why? Why does it matter? I've been thinking about it a lot lately because when things go wrong on a project, and they do for all of us, it's very rarely because we didn't know how to make something. Sometimes it's because we don't write out our processes and procedures, but that's another podcast. It's usually because somewhere along the way, something was not clearly communicated. Maybe expectations weren't set. Maybe assumptions were made. Maybe something felt understood but was never actually said out loud. And unfortunately, the result of that is redoing work. It means delays. It means frustration, or that feeling in your stomach when you realize this is going to take way longer than it should or than I thought. Maybe it takes exactly as long as it should, but there were assumptions made. Some of you who are a little on the older side know exactly what I say when you say, do not assume. It makes an ass out of you and me. And if you're listening to that and thinking, what the heck is Ciel talking about? Then you are much younger than me. By the way, none of that has anything to do with your sewing skills. Where does communication break down? Let's talk about a few of the places where this happens most often. First, at the very beginning, during the planning stage. This is where we sometimes rush, or we're really excited about the project. Client's excited, the designer's excited. You can stop working on those beige or white or gray products that you're working on, and you've got some color coming into your workroom. It's all really exciting. We move forward without slowing down long enough to say things like, here's exactly how this will work. Here's what I need from you before I begin. Here's what happens if something changes. It's not over-explaining, it's just setting the project up for success. The second place is assumptions. These are some of the assumptions that we make, that the designer understands our process, especially if it's someone we've been working with for a while. But each project is unique, hence custom. So have we explained how things work? We assume the client knows what custom really means, or what a French pleat looks like, or exactly how long a puddled treatment is, or what relaxed means. We also assume that everyone is picturing the same finished result, and they're not. And they can't be, because they don't do what you do every day. So when we don't communicate clearly, we end up solving problems that didn't need to exist in the first place. The third place it matters is during the project itself. And this is where I think things get really interesting, because this is where we know something isn't quite right, but we hesitate. We hesitate to send the email, to ask the question. We hesitate to clarify. Something just feels a little off. And usually it's not because we don't know what to say. It's because we're trying to avoid discomfort. We don't want to seem difficult. We don't want to slow the project down. We worry about how our questions will be received. Especially if we're new at this, we worry that asking a question makes us appear as if we don't know what we're talking about. So instead, we tell ourselves, oh, I'll just figure it out. I'm sure this is going to be fine. I don't want to bother them with this. Sometimes it is fine. Other times, that small moment the one where we didn't speak up, is the exact moment where the project starts to go off track. And here's what it can look like in real life. You notice that the measurements don't quite make sense, but you assume they must be right because this designer's always done her own measurements. She's always been accurate. Or the designer said an installer did the measurements, so it must be right. Or you did the measurements and maybe someone was speaking to you while you were doing them, and you kind of look at it and go, is that what I meant to write down? You see something in the design that might not function the way it's expected, but you think, well, maybe they know something I don't. And I think this is imposter syndrome raising its ugly head. They know more than I do, so they don't. And if you're questioning it, you should be questioning them. Sometimes the fabric behaves differently than anticipated, but instead of pausing, you push through and you hope it works out. How many times have you thought, this will iron out, some steam will help, I'll just put an extra staple in here? How's that working for you? Or a detail wasn't fully specified, and rather than clarifying, you make your best guess. I don't know about you, this has never worked out for me. I can say this is one area that from pretty early on, I did not hesitate to ask a question or to get a detail clarified. I only had to make that mistake, 6 or 7 times before I learned from it. Again, none of this has anything to do with your skill level. This happens to experienced workrooms. This happens to people who know exactly what they're doing. I mean, you do know exactly what you're doing. This isn't about knowledge. It's about being willing to pause and have a conversation that might feel just a little uncomfortable in the moment. Here's the trade-off. That brief discomfort of asking a question is almost always easier than the extended frustration of fixing something later, or that incredible discomfort of looking at a window treatment at the client's home and realizing it's not going to fit, or that it's too long, or that it's the back of the fabric instead of the front of the fabric. It is so much easier to have that moment of discomfort than redoing the work, or than explaining why something doesn't match expectations. And it is so much easier to ask that question early on than it is to carry that stress through the rest of the project. I think this part of what I'm trying to talk to you about is a lot like procrastination and that feeling we get when we realize that by getting something checked off our list, we are no longer carrying that weight of something that's undone. I think this is exactly the same thing. It might feel uncomfortable to pick up the phone and call the client and say, I don't understand this, or I want to make sure we understand each other. That is uncomfortable. But carrying that weight of, geez, I hope this is right. Geez, I hope this is right, for the days and weeks or months until a project is installed. Future you will really appreciate you if you take care of this now. So one of the most valuable habits that you can build is this. When something feels uncomfortable or unclear, you can pause. Not later, not at the end of the day, not after you've already moved forward and cut the fabric or the board or ordered the hardware. Pause right there and say, before I continue, I just want to clarify. Or, I'm seeing this. Can we talk through it for a minute? I had not worked with this one particular designer for a little while. She hadn't been that busy, and we were at a client's house. And she had called me. The way we operate together, by the time I go to the client's house, the job is pretty much sold. I have rarely gone on a measure for her that was not a done deal. And I got an idea of the scope of the project before we went. And I was measuring, and I realized partway through that I was really unclear about what was happening in the 2 different rooms we were working in. And I took a second and I said to her, I want to make sure I have this all correct. and that we are on the same page. Let's start in this room. On this window, you want, and I stopped. And she would say, I want a Roman shade and a single width panel to the left. On this window, you want single Roman shade and a single width panel to the right. That's not what I thought she wanted. And if I had not taken that moment to ask her to clarify, I'm not really sure what I would have quoted for her. Because I said, please clarify to me exactly what you want. I didn't say to her, I don't understand what you want. I didn't say, I think I'm mixed up. I just asked her to be clear with me. And we got it all right. There's only ever been one designer that I worked with who didn't value this kind of conversation. Every other designer was so grateful that we took those couple of minutes. And for some of my designers, I'm the one they call with the exact same question. Can we talk this through? And I feel great about being the sounding board for them. The one designer that did not appreciate that, we didn't work together very long. She wanted to rush through, and she assumed that by barking orders at me, I understood everything she wanted. I did not, and I couldn't work that way. So we weren't a good fit. Those small moments of clarity do not slow you down. They actually end up helping you protect your time. They protect your work, and honestly, they build trust because you're showing that you care enough to get it right. In the process of asking that designer to give me the specific details a second time, I was in the room, I could visualize it, and I did get it right. And she was fine with it. It was a lot of window treatments. She wanted to make sure we were getting everything right. So what does strong communication look like? What does it look like in real life? It doesn't mean you have to be wordy. It means you need to be clear, direct, and most importantly, proactive. It can sound like, before I begin, I want to confirm this. This is how I typically handle this. If we make a change, here's what that affects. And it's about educating our clients or designers along the way. It doesn't have to be heavy or overwhelming, but it has to be enough so that they understand the decisions being made. Because when people understand our process, they can make better decisions. When they make better decisions, your job just gets easier. And little things like shooting a picture of where fabric pattern placement is going to be for a Roman shade or a pillow. It's not saying I don't know how to make a pillow. It's saying this is a really big pattern repeat, and it's not a gigantic pillow. How much of this bird, flower, geometric shape do you want to see on the pillow? It says, I respect you and your needs, and I need to get this right for you. I really think that a simple mind shift can make a really big difference for all of us, and it certainly has for me. I decided it wasn't okay for me to be something I did after a problem arose. I started thinking of communication as something I do to prevent a problem in the first place. Because most of the time, if there's a problem, I'm the one who has more work to do. So it means that I need to slow down at the beginning. It means risking looking a little vulnerable and saying, please tell me again what window treatments you want on which window in this room. It means saying the thing that feels obvious to you, but may not be obvious to them. And it means repeating important details more than once. It could be a symptom of my age. It could be a symptom of the fact that I'm a visual learner. Sometimes I hear things and I don't process them immediately. So hearing them a second time is really important for me. And sometimes it has to be me who repeats it. And that helps me to clarify things in my own brain. You also have to be willing to have conversations that feel just a little bit uncomfortable because they matter. And a little bit of discomfort in the moment is a lot better than a big discomfort at the end. So if you take one thing away from this episode, please let it be this. You don't have to be better at sewing to improve your business. You might need to be clearer in how and when you communicate. And the good news is that's a skill you can practice every single day. You can do it in emails, you can do it in conversations. How you write your estimates. Do you have wording on your estimates that clarify your processes? Do you explain your process at all? Small improvements here can completely change how your projects flow and how you feel while you're doing them. None of us got into this business so that we could dread working on our projects. We got into it because, well, we got into it for a lot of reasons, as you know, by listening to this podcast. But none of us want to be stressed while we're working on a project. I really appreciate that you spent time with me today. And I always appreciate that you take the time to let me into your ears and let me spend time with you during the podcast. If this is something that you've been noticing in your workroom, and if communication has been important for you, or if you've had a little bit of a problem with expectations or communication, I would love to hear more about it. A few of the things that I talked about today might help you fix a few things. No pressure. Just notice where things could get a little clearer for you. And I hope if any of this resonates with you, I would love for you to post a comment on the So Much More Podcast Facebook group. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day.